In today's charged political climate, live television has become a battlefield where ideology, integrity, and rhetoric collide in front of millions. One such moment that sent shockwaves through the political world occurred when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett confronted Representative Matt Gaetz in a fiery and unapologetic exchange. What was supposed to be a routine committee hearing quickly escalated into a viral showdown, one that not only exposed deep partisan divides but also showcased the rising voice of a bold new generation in American politics. This speech will unpack that unforgettable moment, the background leading up to it, the substance of Crockett's powerful remarks, and the broader implications it holds for political discourse in America today. Jasmine Crockett's assertive communication style dismantled Gaetz's accusations with precision and clarity. During the televised committee hearing, the tone was tense from the outset, and it quickly became clear that Matt Gaetz intended to provoke rather than participate in a constructive dialogue. He launched into a string of pointed accusations and rhetorical questions that many observers identified as politically motivated rather than grounded in factual inquiry. Rather than backing down or being caught off guard, Crockett met his tone with firm conviction and methodical reasoning. Her approach was not to mirror Gaetz's antagonism, but to control the conversation through focused responses and careful dismantling of his narrative. Each time he attempted to interrupt or redirect the discussion, she calmly asserted her right to speak, setting boundaries and demanding order within the room. Her body language remained composed, her voice unwavering, and her expressions deliberate, signaling not only her preparedness but also her refusal to be intimidated. Her strategy involved not just defending herself or her position, but systematically pointing out the inconsistencies and logical fallacies in Gaetz's approach. For example, when Gaetz tried to frame his line of questioning around hypotheticals and insinuations, Crockett redirected the conversation to verifiable facts and procedural rules, emphasizing transparency and accountability. She frequently referenced rules of order and committee precedents, showing her command over the structure of the hearing and ensuring that the audience, both in the room and watching on television, understood that she was not only rhetorically skilled but also well-versed in legislative protocol. This allowed her to undermine the credibility of Gaetz's theatrics by contrasting it with her own grounded and informed demeanor. Crockett's tone was assertive without becoming emotional, and her use of language was pointed but never reckless. She chose her words carefully, ensuring that her message was sharp but defensible. This rhetorical discipline gave her the upper hand, especially in a setting where public perception plays a major role. While Gaetz often relied on insinuations and ideological jabs, Crockett returned to evidence, public record, and documented behavior. She exposed the hollowness of Gaetz's arguments not just by refuting them, but by revealing their underlying motivations, framing them as distractions from genuine oversight and accountability. Her responses were imbued with a kind of restrained passion that communicated both professionalism and moral clarity, a difficult balance to maintain in a high-stakes, combative environment. The effectiveness of Crockett's dismantling of Gaetz's accusations also rested on her ability to remain unshaken under pressure. Gaetz's typical strategy in these hearings includes interrupting, derailing, and baiting his opponents into emotional responses. Crockett, however, anticipated these tactics and came prepared. Each time Gaetz attempted to dominate the exchange, she calmly re-centered the conversation, refusing to let him define the terms of the debate. Her refusal to be silenced or pushed off message was a powerful assertion of both her authority and her rhetorical command. It sent a message not just to Gaetz, but to the broader political audience, that she was not a passive participant but an active, informed, and formidable voice in the room. Her dismantling of Gaetz's claims wasn't just a matter of political theater, it was a demonstration of how clarity, preparation, and discipline can effectively neutralize bad faith arguments. When Gaetz attempted to use innuendo and mischaracterization to steer the conversation, Crockett brought it back to real-world consequences and the duties of elected officials. She contextualized her points within the responsibilities of public service, which made her responses resonate beyond just the chamber. Viewers watching the exchange saw not only a rebuttal to Gaetz, but a blueprint for how to counter disinformation and deflection in high-pressure political forums. Her style embodied a shift in how newer voices in Congress are challenging traditional power dynamics, not with volume but with verification. Crockett's demeanor also played a significant role in her effectiveness. She didn't raise her voice unnecessarily or resort to insults, and yet every point she made landed with force. The clarity of her articulation made it easy for viewers to follow her arguments, even when the subject matter veered into the procedural or policy-oriented. Her cadence, measured and steady, reflected the seriousness with which she approached the issue and stood in stark contrast to Gaetz's more performative delivery. This contrast worked in her favor, highlighting the difference between showmanship and substance in political discourse. Her calm confidence served to expose Gaetz's tactics as reactive and superficial. Furthermore, Crockett's communication style made her remarks accessible to a wide audience. She blended formal political language with plainspoken, relatable phrasing when needed, striking a tone that connected with constituents as much as colleagues. When speaking on integrity, transparency, or the responsibility of public servants, she drew on universal principles rather than partisan rhetoric, which broadened her appeal. Her words resonated because they weren't just a defense against one politician, they were a call to higher standards in governance, and that resonated with those disillusioned by the performative nature of modern politics. Throughout the exchange, Crockett demonstrated that assertiveness in political communication does not require aggression or grandstanding. Her dismantling of Gaetz's accusations was rooted in discipline, preparation, and an unshakable commitment to the truth. She didn't just deflect his attacks, she rendered them ineffective by refusing to validate their premise. Her poise under fire underscored her leadership potential and affirmed her role as a rising force in congressional politics. Viewers came away from the moment not simply entertained by a dramatic exchange, but with a renewed sense that integrity and clarity can still prevail in American political discourse when wielded with confidence and precision. The viral exchange highlighted racial and gender dynamics in political confrontations on national television. When Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett confronted Representative Matt Gaetz, the moment was charged not just by political disagreement but by the deeper, unspoken tensions that often accompany interactions between powerful white male figures and outspoken black women in American politics. This dynamic is not new, but the visibility and impact of such moments are amplified in today's digital media landscape. The image of a confident, unapologetic black woman standing her ground against a well-known conservative male figure played directly into long-standing cultural and societal narratives about power, voice, and identity in public life. Crockett's refusal to be silenced or talked over was emblematic of a broader struggle many women of color face in high-stakes professional environments where they are often expected to shrink, conform, or remain deferential in the face of hostility. As Crockett navigated Gaetz's confrontational tactics, the visual and auditory cues of the moment added layers of significance. Gaetz, known for his aggressive questioning style and performative interruptions, attempted to dominate the exchange through volume, rapid-fire accusations, and dismissive language. Crockett responded not only with substantive rebuttals but with a demeanor that refused to acknowledge his attempt to reassert dominance. Her ability to maintain composure while asserting her right to speak was a direct challenge to the stereotype of the angry black woman, a trope often used to discredit black women when they speak passionately or push back against authority. Instead of playing into the stereotype, Crockett redefined the space, reclaiming it as one where clarity, intelligence, and moral conviction could prevail without the need to soften her tone or dilute her message. The broader context of race and gender in this moment also speaks to how power operates in public forums. Television, particularly live broadcasts, often serves as both a battleground and a mirror. Audiences see more than just the words being spoken, they absorb posture, tone, interruptions, and facial expressions. In this case, Crockett's presence and delivery disrupted the expected order. Rather than cede ground or be put on the defensive, she took control of the narrative, making it clear that she would not be reduced to a caricature or allow herself to be baited into an emotional reaction. Her self-possession sent a powerful message, especially to younger women of color who often struggle to find representation of themselves in spaces of political power where assertiveness is both required and punished depending on who is wielding it. The power imbalance on display during the exchange was not just about partisanship, it reflected historical hierarchies that persist in political institutions. Black women in Congress, though growing in number, remain disproportionately underrepresented and frequently face double standards when it comes to behavior, language, and public scrutiny. Crockett's ability to navigate that environment while maintaining her voice demonstrated an acute awareness of the tightrope she walks as both a public servant and a symbolic figure in the ongoing push for equity in American leadership. Her presence in the room, and the way she leveraged it, challenged the norms of who gets to speak with authority and whose anger, frustration, or assertiveness is considered legitimate. The audience response to the exchange revealed how racial and gender dynamics resonate differently across various communities. For many viewers, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds, Crockett's pushback was not merely a political moment, it was a cultural affirmation. It symbolized resistance against centuries of silencing, tokenism, and the expectation that black women must remain palatable in order to be respected. On social media, hashtags and posts celebrated her as a truth teller and praised her for holding her ground. This reaction was not just about the words she used but the fact that she occupied a position of authority and refused to be minimized. That visual alone, of a black woman commanding the room in the face of opposition, carried symbolic weight that extended beyond the specifics of the hearing. The media's framing of the exchange further underscored how race and gender shape interpretation. In some corners, the moment was described in terms of drama or fireworks, reducing it to spectacle rather than engaging with the deeper dynamics at play. In contrast, many outlets and commentators recognized the racialized subtext and praised Crockett's poise and assertiveness as a sign of political evolution. The divide in interpretation illustrates how different lenses, some rooted in structural bias, others in lived experience, can lead to vastly different understandings of the same event. Crockett herself seemed keenly aware of this, choosing her language with care and maintaining an even tone that could not easily be weaponized or dismissed. Her performance during the confrontation also provided a blueprint for other marginalized leaders navigating hostile environments. Rather than retreating or resorting to defensiveness, she engaged directly and fearlessly. Her insistence on being heard and respected was not just personal but political. It challenged the idea that decorum must always serve the powerful and that civility is only breached when those at the margins speak up. She flipped the script, showing that true professionalism lies in clarity, not compliance, in standing firm, not in standing down. That distinction is particularly important in a political landscape where black women are often judged more harshly and afforded less leeway to express outrage, passion, or conviction. The resonance of this moment lies not only in what was said but in who said it, and how. Crockett's identity informed the power of her delivery, just as the reaction to her words was shaped by societal biases. She was not just responding to Gaetz, she was confronting the structures that have long elevated voices like his while suppressing voices like hers. By standing her ground, she refused to conform to the narrow definitions of acceptability that have historically constrained women of color in leadership roles. Her very presence, combined with the confidence and coherence of her response, made it clear that representation is not just about occupying space, but about transforming it. That transformation was visible in the public aftermath, where Crockett became a trending topic and a symbol of resistance for many who feel marginalized or unheard. The viral nature of the exchange speaks to the hunger for moments of truth and authenticity in a political culture that often rewards performance over principle. Crockett delivered both. She exposed the fragility of performative outrage by countering it with substance and refused to play into the theatrics that Gaetz thrives on. Instead, she rewrote the terms of engagement, embodying a form of leadership that is informed by experience, fortified by resilience, and unapologetic in its truth-telling. Crockett's rebuttal energized progressive audiences and reshaped public perception of political accountability. In an era where political theater often overshadows substantive debate, Jasmine Crockett's sharp and measured response to Matt Gaetz was a breath of fresh air for many who have grown weary of empty posturing and partisan spectacle. Her performance wasn't just an isolated moment of personal strength, it was interpreted by progressives as a broader stand for integrity, justice, and the kind of fearless truth-telling that many feel has been missing from the halls of Congress. As the clip of the exchange began circulating online, it became a viral rallying point for viewers across social media platforms who saw in Crockett a representative voice willing to take on entrenched political power without hesitation. The progressive response to Crockett's confrontation with Gaetz was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Hashtags praising her courage and clarity trended, and countless commentators, activists, and everyday citizens shared their admiration for her composure and rhetorical skill. Her ability to stand firm under pressure and challenge Gaetz's tactics with facts and logic struck a chord with audiences who often feel that conservative figures like Gaetz are allowed to dominate discourse through bullying and misinformation. Crockett disrupted that dynamic, not just by calling it out but by neutralizing it through her presence and words. Her rebuttal wasn't just a personal defense, it was framed by many as a defense of democratic principles, transparency, and the need for elected officials to be held accountable for their behavior and rhetoric. The exchange served as a reminder that political accountability is not just about formal oversight mechanisms or legislative action, it also occurs in the moments when power is confronted directly in public view. Crockett's clarity and confidence forced a reckoning in real time, exposing how often bad faith questioning and performative outrage are used as tools to distract from the actual responsibilities of governance. By refusing to allow Gaetz to control the narrative, Crockett turned what could have been a routine sparring match into a moment of reckoning, prompting viewers to reconsider how they assess leadership and truth in American politics. Her insistence on decorum, honesty, and respect shifted the focus away from partisan mudslinging and toward the kind of civic conduct that many progressives believe is essential to a functioning democracy. As the video of her rebuttal spread across various news outlets and social media channels, it became more than just a trending topic, it became a touchstone for discussions about who holds power in Washington and how that power is challenged. Progressives saw Crockett not only as a skilled debater but also as a symbol of change, someone unafraid to call out hypocrisy and grandstanding no matter how high-profile the opponent. Her performance validated the frustrations of those who believe that many political leaders avoid accountability by hiding behind procedure, tradition, or media spin. Crockett's no-nonsense style, backed by her legal background and deep knowledge of congressional procedure, cut through that smokescreen and brought a sense of clarity to the chaos. Public perception of accountability is deeply influenced by the optics and tone of political encounters. Crockett's ability to remain composed, factual, and firm in the face of Gaetz's interruptions and insinuations painted a stark contrast between seriousness and spectacle. This contrast was picked up not only by progressives but also by moderate observers who may not align ideologically with either figure but recognize the value of respectful, truth-driven dialogue. Her refusal to be baited into an emotional response or to allow her time to be dominated by interruptions became a subtle but powerful assertion of her role as an equal, not a subordinate. That message resonated far beyond the committee room, becoming part of a larger cultural conversation about representation, resilience, and what accountability really looks like. The exchange also had a galvanizing effect within progressive organizing circles, where leaders and influencers cited Crockett as an example of how to push back against bad faith actors without losing credibility or composure. For many grassroots organizations, her rebuttal was seen as evidence that it is possible to challenge the status quo from within the system without becoming part of the performative machinery. Her words were studied, replayed, and celebrated as a model of how to demand truth and fairness while staying rooted in fact and civility. This sense of strategy and principle was a major factor in why her moment on live television did more than just go viral. It sparked renewed energy and conversation about how progressives can communicate more effectively and stand firm in adversarial environments. Crockett's voice in that moment didn't just represent her own district. It became a voice for millions of Americans who feel disillusioned by a political landscape where shouting often replaces substance. Her approach suggested that accountability isn't just about what you say, but how you say it, about staying grounded in truth, insisting on fairness, and refusing to be silenced by louder voices. As more people watched the clip, the impact grew. She was praised for her ability to speak with both authority and relatability, combining legal acumen with moral conviction in a way that felt both authentic and aspirational. It wasn't just about winning a debate, it was about reminding viewers what it looks like when someone stands up not only for themselves but for the integrity of the entire process. Media figures and commentators echoed this sentiment, highlighting how Crockett's performance challenged the norms of political communication. At a time when many viewers have become cynical about whether anything meaningful can happen in congressional hearings, she made people pay attention. She showed that moments of truth can still break through the noise, that skillful and principled resistance can leave a lasting impression even amid the chaos of partisan conflict. This helped reshape public expectations of what it means for elected officials to be truly accountable, not just to their party, but to the people who put them in office and to the principles they swore to uphold. Crockett's ability to frame her rebuttal around shared values rather than just ideological talking points gave her message staying power. She spoke about fairness, transparency, and the duty to serve, not in abstract terms, but in a way that grounded those values in the immediate moment. For progressives who have long felt sidelined by mainstream narratives or frustrated by the inability to cut through partisan noise, her words provided a moment of clarity and hope. She didn't just speak truth to power, she reminded people that truth itself still has power when wielded with skill, courage, and authenticity. Her performance expanded the imagination of what political accountability can look like, not only in terms of holding others to task but in modeling what it means to lead with conviction even under fire.